Welcome to the weekly share of the Zera Shimshon. And I'm going to dedicate this to a few people. Chana Bas Shira Aviva needs a shidduch very badly. And for Rachel Bas Shira Aviva, and Yaakov Chaim ben Miriam, who haven't had children for many years. So we'll dedicate that. It's a Shem of the Schus of the Zera Shimshon. They should have Yeshuas. Okay, the Midrash, I'm reading for the Zera Shimshon first and then the Midrash. So Vayova Yaakov, I'm sorry, I forgot the date. The date today is Yud Daled Kislev. Mitzvah Shem Tavshin Pei Gimel. Soon another couple of weeks, Hanukkah. Okay. Vayova Yaakov Shalom Ir Shechem Asher Ba'aretz Canaan Baboye Padan Aram V'yichan Es Penei Ha'ir. Yaakov came intact to the city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan, upon his coming from Padan Aram, and he encamped before the city. The Midrash in Bereishis Rabbah 11:7 says the following observation. Rabbi Yochanan says in the name of Rabbi Yosef bar Chalafta that we do not find any mention of Avram Avinu keeping Shabbos. As a result, Avram inherited the world with limitations, as it says, "Rise and walk in the land to its length and breadth." Well, okay, so it's in Eretz Yisrael, but limitations. Now, when it comes to Yaakov Avinu, on the other hand, we do find the concept of Shabbos observance. As it says, and he encamped before the city. What does that mean? He came to the city before sunset and set up boundaries to the Chum Shabbos for himself while it was still daytime. His reward was an inheritance of the universe without bounds. As the Torah states, your children will be like the dust of the earth. The Zera Shimshon raises what seems to be an obvious question. It appears that Yaakov Avinu kept Shabbos, but that Avram and Yaakov Avinu kept Shabbos, but that Avram and Yitzchak didn't. Why would that be the case? Why wouldn't the first two Avos have kept Shabbos as the grandson and son did? The commentators explain that Avram and Yitzchak weren't sure that whether they fell into the category of Jewish people or Bnei Noach. They were therefore, remember the old machlekes of Yosef and the brothers had the same problem. They were therefore faced with a dilemma. A non-Jew who keeps Shabbos deserves to be put to death. So says the Gemara in Sanhedrin 58b. Avram and Yitzchak would therefore chose not to keep Shabbos, since there was a distinct possibility that they were Bnei Noach and were forbidden from keeping Shabbos. That raises another obvious question. The Gemara in Yuma 28b states that Avram Avinu fulfilled the entire Torah, including mitzvah of Erev Tavshilin. If that's the case, and he kept all the mitzvahs doing it, including Erev Tavshilin, which is a Shabbos-related mitzvah, then he must have kept all Shabbos as well, which would suggest that the Midrash contradicts the Gemara. Zera Shimshon offers an explanation. Although the words of the Gemara seem to imply that Avram Avinu kept Shabbos, it doesn't necessarily mean that he didn't do any malachas, forbidden work, but rather he was careful to honor Shabbos. A non-Jew may not be allowed to actually keep Shabbos with all its halachas, but he can definitely honor Shabbos, giving Avram and Yitzchak a way out of their impasse. What about the fact that Avram Avinu went so far as to make an Erev Tavshilin? If that's the case, it seems that Avram Avinu was doing a lot more than just honoring Shabbos. But the truth is that even the mitzvah of Erev Tavshilin is not about refraining from work on the holy day, but rather about honoring Shabbos. As the Gemara states, by making the Erev Tavshilin, a person will remember not to finish all his food, but on Yom Tov, and will set aside a worthy portion to enjoy Shabbos, thereby honoring the Shabbos. That's the Gemara in Beitza in 15b. Using this approach, we can make peace between the seeming contradiction between the Gemara and the Midrash. Did Avram and Yitzchak actually keep the mitzvah of Shabbos? It appears not. Did they honor Shabbos? Very much so. Which brings us to our next question. If Avram and Yitzchak didn't keep Shabbos, why didn't Yaakov act the same way? Therefore, furthermore, the pasuk here seems to be implying that keeping Shabbos was a new development in Yaakov's life, and that he was just starting to keep it now. When he came to Shechem, okay, why? In order to answer all the questions, we must first explain the reason why that Esau's angel was only able to best Yaakov in their fight as the morning approached. If the angel was more powerful than Yaakov, he should have been able to win the struggle hours before. And if he didn't have the necessary powers, why was he able to get upper hand as morning arrived? In addition, we should remember the Gemara statement that says Tzaddikim are greater than angels, the Gemara in Sanhedrin 93a. Not only that, but the Midrash in Bereishis Rabbah quotes the pasuk that his angels are commanded to watch over you, right? That means the angels are commanded to watch over us as Jews. It's a pasuk in Tehillim 91. And it explains it by saying that the one who is being protected by the angels is greater than the one doing the protecting. So if we ask why it is that tzaddikim are greater than angels, there's a simple explanation. Angels learn that while tzaddikim fulfill the actual mitzvahs. Angels love the Torah, yet they can do no more than study it on a theoretical level. For an angel, its relationship with the Torah starts and stops at the learning stage. That the fulfillment of the mitzvahs or actions are greater than just learning. So says the Gemara in Bava Kama 17a. Which is why we find a number of examples of angels treating tzaddikim with reverence. It has to do with the fact that the tzaddikim have the ability to take action while angels are restricted in their avodah. Tosfos in Sanhedrin 37b cites that there was a minhag in Eretz Yisrael that they said Kedusha only on Shabbos. You know, when we say by the davening, Kadosh, 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 right? They only said that on Shabbos. The Iyun Yaakov explains that people couldn't say the Shira, the song of praise to Hashem, during the week because they are subject to death and possess a Yetzer Hara. Weekday Shira to Hashem is therefore provided by the angels. While on Shabbos, the Jewish people can also contribute to the Shira since it's a holy day. And the taste of the world to come is there. Mikanafa or it's Zmira Shomanu. Now, we can now understand why the angel was at first unable to best Yaakov in their fight. Yaakov was constantly doing mitzvahs. He was a man of action, as opposed to Esau's angel, who could do no more than study. But when the morning began to dawn, the angel was able to turn the tables. Why? Because the time had come to sing Shira, and the angel had access to a merit that was not available to Yaakov. Wait a second. Didn't we just see that Yidden are able to sing Shira on Shabbos? Why wasn't Yaakov Avinu able to combat the angel's Shira with the merit of his own Shabbos Shira? Once we remember that Yaakov hadn't been keeping Shabbos until that time, which meant that he hadn't been able to sing Shira, everything else makes sense. And we can understand what merit the angel had over Yaakov Avinu, and why he was able to best him in a struggle. After the battle between Yaakov and the angel, Yaakov Avinu understood that the only reason the angel had ever had a chance was because of the Shira. And Yaakov understood that the source of his power over the angel during the night was due to all his maisim, to the good deeds and the mitzvahs that he did for Hashem on a regular basis, and that they were giving Hashem exceptional enjoyment, much more than if he was just a ben Noach. At that moment, it became clear to him that Hashem considered him a Jew, and that he had left the category of ben Noach in every way. With this realization, Yaakov Avinu was able to begin keeping Shabbos like a Jew, and able to sing Shira to Hashem as well, removing the only power Esau's angel ever had over him. So it says there's Zera Shimshon in Vayishlach, Ois Yud Aleph, the 11th. So it's a little piece of a letter to Rabbi Yisrael Zilberberg by a man who has a pseudonym here. I enjoyed reading the stories in your newsletter, whereas in the past I was only able to read about other people's stories. Now I have a story of my own to share. And I'm writing to you with tremendous joy and a feeling of obligation to let all your readers know what happened to me. I recently turned 21 and was more than ready to get married. Not long after my birthday, when I was feeling that the time was passing quickly and nothing was happening, a friend called me up and told me about the Zera Shimshon. So what's so special about this sefer? I asked him. I mean, there are a million Svarim in the world, and why are you talking dafka about this one? You don't understand, he replied. Many people who started to learn this sefer experienced Yeshuas. What do I need to do? He says, go out and buy the sefer and learn from it. It didn't sound like a big deal, and I followed his advice. A few days later, I found a Sforim store that sold the sefer and brought it back to yeshiva and began to learn from it on a regular basis. I'll be honest with you, it was difficult for me to understand what the Zera Shimshon wrote. Nevertheless, I kept at it, didn't give up, and learned from the sefer at least twice a week, even though there were times when I didn't understand what I was reading. I didn't let that stop me. The author never requested that I understand what he wrote. He requested that I learn the sefer, and that's exactly what I was doing. When I finished learning my quota for the day, I'd mentioned Zera Shimshon's name and asked that I be zeicha to find a good shidduch in his schus. A week after I began learning the sefer, my parents were suddenly inundated with top quality shidduchim. A week, and I got engaged a short time later to a girl from a wonderful family. Here I want to make something very clear. The shidduch that I got was better than I'd ever dreamed possible, and more than I ever expected. Of course, I told everyone in yeshiva what had happened to me, and I was able to convince the Rosh Yeshiva to begin a daily shir in Zera Shimshon for a group of bachurim who were in the Parshat and needed chizuk. The Rosh Yeshiva gave numerous shirim every day for many groups of bachurim, and he was more than willing to give this one as well. So may in the schus of the Zera Shimshon or Nachmani, to be a schus of Shimshon Chaim Nachmani, should be a schus for everybody, and especially for these people that I mentioned before, to have a Yeshua, and we shall be zeiche to have Yeshuas and Nechamais, and have a great Shabbos. Kol Tov.